Justin, this is an informal training. It's the first time I've done this, a class on sphere of influence. So this will probably have 2 or 3, and being the first one, it probably won't be the best. But we're going to cover 4 different areas. And I think I had 5 copies of those. Okay, so I need 1 for myself. Okay, so we have this handout, and there's really about 4 different areas that we're going to talk about with your sphere of influence. One is credibility, because before you can ask for referrals or before you can expect referrals, you have to have credibility. So you have to know, how credible is this agent compared to other agents, especially if I'm referring this person to other people. Justin, I'm sorry, do you mind running and getting my headphones on my desk? I left them and they say this audio is not very good otherwise.
It's not.
Okay. And then earning the referrals and showing that you care. And then top of mind awareness. How do you create top of mind awareness? And then asking for the referral. When is it appropriate to ask for the referral? That's something a lot of brokerages and a lot of trainers don't really emphasize very much. Another thing that I'm going to talk about today is a SWOT analysis. So a SWOT analysis is your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And your SWOT analysis is a great exercise you basically put that on a quadrant, and you just put strengths in one corner, weaknesses in one corner, opportunities in one corner, and threats in one corner. And this is something that I was working with on an agent last week, and it really makes a difference in the way you look at your skills and your opportunities for growth and with human relationships, because SWOT analysis, there's a lot of different SWOT analysis you can do, not only in your business, but also in your relationships and how to improve your relationships. So I would encourage you to look into that. I just Googled it. I found a lot of information. There's several good articles in Realtor Magazine and Market Leader about a SWOT analysis. So that we're going to table it for a while, and we're going to try to get through as much of this in about 20 minutes. I'm going to try to keep this fairly short, 20 to 30 minutes for today's class. Okay, so the handout that we have is, we'll start with, why is your sphere of influence an average agent's most profitable source of revenue? So statistically, 70% of an agent's revenue comes from their sphere of influence. And these are direct referrals or referrals from their sphere of influence. So they're either buying directly, the sphere is, or the sphere of influence, their personal referrals. So when you have someone that refers you someone else, then they have to really trust you. That credibility really needs to be there. And there's a real interesting article in Realtor Magazine about repeat business and why your clients stick by you. And it shows some good attributes and bad attributes. There's a lot of people that go to the same car salesperson, that goes to the same realtor, and go to the same sales professionals, sometimes for years and years. And that says sometimes the sales professional is not very good. So they do it out of a sense of obligation. So it's real interesting to read this to find out why people continue to stick by their salesperson. And I also looked at, I thought it'd be good to know what are the most recent statistics, the most recent data on how people are finding a realtor. With the technology and online sphere of influence, some people think of that as being a bit antiquated or not as effective as it used to be, but it's still, even the most recent homebuyer report, which was just last year, and the multi-generation buyer report, the 2014 profile for buyers and sellers, and the generational trends profile in NAR. In every profile, in every case, it says clearly that the #1 source of business for agents is personal referrals. So I thought that was very interesting. And the #1 way that people found an agent was personal referrals. Now, keep in mind, that's different than finding a house. A lot of people will find a house and then they will end up, finding an agent from that as a result of that. And that's where the Trulia, Zillow, these online lead sources provide so many leads and are reselling that information. But the personal referral is still extremely powerful, and that's how most people find a realtor. So I thought that was very, very interesting. So then the next thing we need to ask ourselves is, okay, if 70% of an average agent's business comes from personal referral, then how many people do I need to know to meet my income goal, basically? And this is a real loaded question, because we can go really broad with this. A lot of real estate trainers and a lot of training classes will say you need 300 people or you to have 30 transactions a year, because we know that 10% of the people that are in your sphere of influence are likely to buy. 10% will buy a year, since the average homeowner moves every 8 to 10 years. So here's something else you need to ask yourself. If you're a millennial, or a Gen Y and you're recently out of college, or if your friends are in the early 20s, or if they're 65 plus, then those are not necessarily the years to where people are making moves and buying and selling homes. The average homeowner and seller is between the age of about 32 and 65. So keep that in mind with your profile and your sphere of influence as well. If you're a younger agent, then you'll want to go on a little bit older demographic as far as broadening your sphere of influence, hanging around with older people. So there's three ways, how do you strengthen these relationships: increasing your credibility, and conveying market knowledge, and being top of mind. And we're going to talk more about those three ways. And as far as the numbers, there's some agents out there that may only, I think just human nature in itself, they say that there's five, the five people, your five friends, are the five people you become. You are most like, show me your friends and I'll show you the person. There's a lot of truth to that. So think about those five people that are close to you in your relationships. Are you leveraging referrals from those five people? And I know me personally and my closest friends, that's where most of my business comes from. I'm not a practicing realtor that really generates business anymore, but I have a deal right now. It's with one of my closest friends, and it's because I'm top of mind, and that's usually the transactions that I have. They're with very, very, not my 300 people that are in my network, but my very closest friends. So think about that. How can you strengthen the relationships and go not only broad, but do go deep in generating those referrals? So there's two different ways to look at it. 300 is the magic number. You've heard me talk about that in the past as well, that 300 people is kind of the magic number to have in your database. And if you're touching those people somehow monthly, and you have a phone conversation with them quarterly, you will far exceed your income goal. It's pretty much guaranteed. So, but most people have closer to 60 to 85 or 100 people in their network. And even some of the best agents, ironically, only touch their sphere of influence once every 9 months on average. So it's interesting how even the best agents in the business never touch their sphere of influence often enough. So we're going to talk about also some different ways of doing that. How do you touch them? Okay, so we talked a little bit about the numbers. Now, how many contacts do you need to be developing a week? And are you maintaining a relationship with those contacts? For sale by owners, I think are so much fun. I was previewing a for sale by owner yesterday, and I tend to preview for sale by owners that are homes that I appreciate and that I do have buyers for, and that are this is a home that's architecturally significant, just a little under $1 million. And I try to find, if I realize the home is not going to work out for my buyer, then I try to find a way to develop a connection with that seller. And I think that goes for any realtor that's on a listing appointment, or even if you're in a listing preview or someone that you don't know. Building that connection is really the most important thing to not only increasing your credibility, but developing the rapport that's necessary to convert that sale. So with this person, I was in their house for close to 10 minutes before I was able to kind of hit that button. And sometimes it's like peeling an onion to ask enough questions. Why are you moving? Where are you moving to? Well, how long have you lived here? Well, what did you like about this house? And I learned in the course that this guy used to be a real estate broker. He actually was a real estate broker and had 140 agents. And he's since retired, and then he spent part of the years in Italy, so they still spend part time in Italy, and they opened a cooking school. He starts talking about his cooking school and really lit up. You know, it's obvious that cooking is a real passion of his. So I think identifying someone's passions and that will further that relationship, and that's a big component to successfully converting your for sale by owner appointments. I think it's one of the reasons that Sarah has such fantastic success with her note cards is Jill and Sarah on the note cards they're just knocking it out of the park because it's very personal. And when someone, if you are creating that personal connection, that's extremely important. We're going to talk about some other ways to develop that. Okay, so what are the most effective strategies for developing sphere of influence? That's going deep with your relationships. How do you go deep in a relationship when it's someone that you've just met? And I always use the analogy of peeling the onion. Be curious. Try to challenge yourself. And these for sale by owner previews are great ways to do this, because when you're in someone's home, think about this. This is so personal. When you're in a total stranger's house, someone you've never met, and you have the privilege of crossing that threshold and seeing how that person lives. Imagine the power that gives you, that it does not give other agents that are simply on the phone. They don't know what's on the other side of that phone, to where when you're in their personal space and in their house, then this is a real opportunity for you to challenge yourself and go deeper with these relationships and really get personal with what are their passions, what do they love, what are they. And when they're talking, your home is very personal, and when you're talking about that, then these are great exercises that build human relationship skills that you'll use forever, not just selling FSBOs or much less listing for sale by owners. So really think about that when you're on these for sale by owner previews. So live in curiosity. You know, how curious are you with the engagements that you have? How much do you really care when you're on the phone with your sphere of influence and you're making your calls? When you're time blocked, sometimes we become so regimented to where it's almost robotic and following these scripts, and that's where the human relationship is can be fractured, is if they feel that this is a robotic situation and that you don't care, because it's the care that you show and it's the care that they have to feel. Not only do you have to show it, but they have to feel it. And how is it that you're making them feel that you care? This can be so, and the thing is, this can be so simple. This could be as simple as a text message. I was just thinking about your mom. How's she doing? You know, I was just thinking about Johnny last week's game, and I'm wondering how they did. You know, very, very simple gestures like that will take you so far in this business. And if you're working on making simple gestures like that and touching your people, whether it's monthly or whether it's quarterly, if you make it doesn't even have to be a phone call. It can be a quick email. It can be a Facebook, commenting on their Facebook, showing that you care. If you do that every quarter with your database, and you have 100 to 200 people in your database, then imagine the business that you can capture from that. That's not just that, but that's one extremely important component that has to go along with these other things that we're going to talk about. So that's a real important point that I wanted to make, are how you're going deep with your relationships and how much are you showing that you really care. Now, what does your sphere of influence want from you as a professional? So number one, they want to know that you care, and that's, those simple gestures are ways to do that. But then as a professional, what do they expect of you? Well, they expect you obviously to know your market. So knowing your market, that's where it goes back to your white paper. It goes back to your geo farming. What is the average sales price? What's changed in the last year? Has the days on market decreased, and by how much? Has the average sales price increased, and by how much? So quantifying the change is extremely important. Keep in mind, guys, I say this all the time. People remember, you have to put into context what these numbers are about. And if you're just saying this is the average sales price, this is the average days on market, and they don't know what's changed in the last year, or they don't have something to compare that to, you're wasting your breath. You're wasting your time. So make sure you're always speaking about the change. So how do we communicate some of these things? So we'll talk a little bit about that, the most effective ways to provide the communication and the engagement. So um, Facebook is probably the most effective and the cheapest, but I see so many realtors make the mistake of using or spending time on social media without a strategy. So it goes with anything else in life. If you don't have a strategy, then it's hard, and you don't know where you're going, it's hard to get there. So let's talk about your social media strategy here. So number one, as we know, to show you care and create credibility. So what are some ways that you think that you create credibility? Justin, Connie, any suggestions on how to create credibility? I think past sales are one. So showing what you've sold or what you've listed. So if you haven't listed or sold something in the area, show something else that's listed.
Even if it's old.
Right, even if it's old, yeah. But because it may not be relative as far as the market conditions, but it's building credibility for you. And that's the biggest challenge that agents have, is a lack of credibility. So, and that's why some agents will use other agent sales and promote other sales in the area. And it's for that reason alone, is just to establish credibility. So think about that in your geo farm and how you can be perceived as the market expert and increase your credibility by discussing just sold, just listed properties. This is deal of the week in your neighborhood. I saw this and I thought about you. Do you know of anyone that's thinking about moving over there? The simple things like that. But it's not only establishing credibility, but it's also giving the market information. So you can do it through the just listed, just sold postcards, the postcard templates. That's probably the most expensive way to do it. Facebook being the cheapest way to do it. Facebook promoted posts, putting anything that you have that's in mail form or direct mail form, you should be able to put into a template and put on Facebook for free. So keep in mind, you can do that for free. Post that on other area businesses that are in the neighborhood. You can do that for free. You can engage with those area business pages for free. And then the promoted posts that you put in your zip code or in your areas or GeoFarm, that's extremely inexpensive and easy to do on Facebook too. They make it pretty easy. So the Waller Group script book, I wanted to make sure everyone we have two different script books, and there's the daily workout, and then there's also the Waller Group buyer script book. So today we're going to talk about the daily workout. And you'll notice on page 3, developing a center of influence. So this is a great memory jogger to go down and write next to each one of these, who do you know that's in all of these businesses? And then maybe who do they know? So certain service professionals will have a lot of contacts that are buying and selling, CPAs, attorneys, great referral partners. So think about, how can I go deeper with those relationships with CPAs and attorneys? One of my best friends is an attorney, and he selling him a house last week and sold him one several months ago. And every time I see him, it seems like he's sending me a referral. So, those are people that they come into contact with a lot of buyers and sellers. So keep that in mind. Who do you know, and who falls in this list that come in contact with buyers and sellers? Another way to think about that, or kind of for you guys to work on your strategy is, and this goes for your social media strategy too, is who are people that come into contact with others in a life change. So what are the factors that cause a move? Well, we know it's divorce is the most profitable moving factor. Sometimes it can create up to 3 transactions. Death, sadly, is a factor that creates a transaction. A marriage, so a new beginning, and children, so more children create transactions. Working with some of my easiest transactions, working with pregnant women. It sounds ludicrous, but they are so focused on getting in a home, and it's very important. And so dealing with the emotional components there can be challenging, but they're usually highly motivated. So that's the level of motivation can expedite your sales process. Okay, so we have the center of influence past client script. And if you have not, made a list or database, all of your sphere of influence, and working towards that 300 number, that magic number of 300, keeping up with those is the other challenge. So it could just be a yellow notepad, that's fine, or it could be as elaborate as Top Producer, which would probably be the most expensive and the absolute best CRM for realtors. I have both. And honestly, I use my yellow notepad. I have about 5 of them for different types of notes and different projects that I'm working on. And one of them is with all my buyers and sellers and people that may be referring me. So, and I have another one that's for referrals. So and I also have Top Producer, but I don't use it. So it's very typical with a lot of other agents. So whatever you do, just use it. And that's what most will say. And so in your CRM, one of the things that's important is their birthdays and what are the personal things that their job situation. Are they thinking about changing jobs anytime soon? People want to live close to their job. If they're retiring, so those are the things that when you're touching base with them, and that's why Mike Ferry, says this needs to be done on a phone call, because when you're on the phone, you can be highly efficient. It's a much better use of your time generally than Facebook or trying to engage online or an email or text message. But when you're on the phone, you can really dig deep and find out, how's the job going? How are the kids? What are you guys doing for the summer? What are your spring travel plans? So you can find out, well, we've got, John has this heart condition and he may have to resign from his job. And you find out things by asking those questions, but you have to do it in a manner that you care as well. Okay, so the Walter Group script book, make sure that you reference that, and that the apology script is probably one of the easiest scripts to use when you're going through and culling your sphere of influence and updating on the birthdays and updating on these things. And that's basically, I'm with Waller Group Properties, and I apologize. It's been so long since I've reached out. I'm updating my records. I just want to see how you guys are doing. You've got your small talk, and then you're going to ask the forward questions of family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. So those are, as Dale Carnegie would say, some of the keystone questions in developing relationships. So credibility. Let's talk. Oh, I skipped a bit. So credibility, mind share, staying top of mind. Another thing, I used to get so frustrated with these e-newsletters and people that would put me on these auto campaigns. These things are worthless. Who reads this stuff? But many times it kept them top of mind, whether I wanted it or not. I thought of that person. I thought of insurance because I get his goofy, e-newsletter once a week. Or so think about that. What is it you're doing that's creating mind share with your sphere of influence? So what's keeping you top of mind? It may be goofy, stupid Facebook posts, but when you're making a post every day and they can't get away from you and they're always seeing you on Facebook, then when it has something to do with real estate, and then you're going to be top of mind. So you own a piece of their mind, and that's what you want to do to leverage referrals from your sphere of influence. So the market snapshot is another way. It's a very credible way that's offered through Top Producer, the Top Producer CRM, of branding yourself and the market data, and it does it automatically, pretty much on autopilot. Just listed, just sold cards, of course, to your sphere of influence. That also increases your credibility. That's why most brokerages suggest putting, even though if the just listed or just sold is not in your GeoFarm, even if it's not in the area that's around the house that just listed or just sold, if it goes to your friends, then it's increasing your credibility. They may not, it may be a totally different price range. It may be but it's increasing your credibility. Market updates. So GeoFarm market updates that are on direct mail postcards and showing your results, what you've done in that neighborhood, then that's also very effective for increasing your credibility. The past client testimonials, probably the most effective way to increase your credibility would be past client testimonials, and that can be done. You can use our surveys. Ask Kim for surveys, or you can just go through your emails because you're copied on all of those Waller Group surveys, and mention on Facebook, or ask them, say, hey, do you mind sharing this on Facebook this survey of my performance, and that goes a long ways. Third-party endorsements always going to go further than you yourself on a past client testimonial. The just listed, just sold Facebook posts. So like I said, anything that's in direct mail can also be put on Facebook. And then your market updates to your GeoFarm, we talked about that. So now enhancing referrals and showing you care. What are some ways to do that? We've already talked about some of this, but handwritten note cards, probably one of the most personal ways that you can indicate that you care about someone, because you're taking the time to do that. Personalized email, phone call communication. So just touching that person, whether, like I said, it's a text message, whether it's an email, whether it's a phone call, but just a quick touch, maybe just popping by their house to say hello, or I was just thinking about you. Just a quick, I was just thinking about you is a very important gesture. And the making someone feel important, when you do that, I was just thinking of you, it makes that person feel important. Who doesn't want to feel important? So that's another thing that you want to think about in the back of your mind, or you want to practice when you're working with for sale by owners, or when you're working with any new client, is, am I making this person feel important? It's why compliments are so important. Compliments sometimes appear shallow, but you guys have heard me talk about this before. There's a restaurant, one of my favorite restaurants is Cafe R&D in Preston Center. And that person at that front desk, the hostess, every time I walk in, she has a compliment. Oh, I love those shoes. I love that belt. Your friend so-and-so was just here. I love him. He has such a great smile. It's just the first thing out of her mouth when she greets me, it's with a compliment. And I remember it, and it makes it one of the best dining experiences that I go to consistently. And it's because, do you think she's not told to make sure she compliments every person that walks through that door? Do you think that's not a customer service delivery function of that restaurant? You bet it is. And that's the way you need to run your business too, is that it's not just caring, but these are customer service delivery systems that are important to being a great agent. So handwritten note cards, personalized email, call communication, just a quick, the subject line on your email, it could be checking in, touching base, update, thinking of you. It doesn't need to be a paragraph. It could be 1 or 2 sentences. So don't overthink this stuff. It's about the way you make them feel. And then an item of value. So what are some items of value? The market update, an updated CMA on their house, economic or housing forecast, giving them information of what's going on in the area. Are you involved in your local Chamber of Commerce? There's an East Dallas Chamber of Commerce. There's Chamber of Commerce for every city. You need to be involved in your Chamber of Commerce. I'm in the regional Dallas Chamber of Commerce. Great networking opportunities. This morning, an LGBT Chamber of Commerce event. Make sure that you're involved in your Chamber of Commerce. That way you have insight that they can't just read in the newspaper, that they can't just pick up, and that they know offhand. You're the one that knows about the housing market, and you're the expert. So you're the one that needs to be informing them of these things, not the newspaper. And that goes back to hyper local, what's going on in your community, sometimes in your neighborhood. So the economic or housing forecast plays into that, but make sure it's local information, things that they can't find out. Household maintenance tips. This is something that I think is so important, that I see so few realtors really use this, is you guys should know the best vendors, the best resources. It's one of the reasons we spend so much time and energy on our vendor list, to make sure we have the best vendors that we're working with for handyman, for painters, for carpet professionals, for the interior designers, for shades, for anything that they need in that house that relates to that house. You should be the valued referral provider for them. So when they think of household, they think of you, right? So they don't think of Angie's List, they don't think of going to Craigslist, but they think, I'm going to call Connie and see who she would use, because she gave me a great referral for a painter a few months ago. That's the type of mind share that you want with your clients and your sphere of influence. People always have a household maintenance issue comes up. It's something that comes up all the time, but yet they're only buying once every 8 to 10 years. So if you're giving them great suggestions there, that's a huge resource. Okay, so then Once you're doing those things on a quarterly basis with your sphere of influence, and once you're establishing credibility through those things we've talked about, you're earning the referrals and showing that you care, then you're also going to work in top of mind awareness. So what are some things that it's top of mind awareness? We talked a little bit about the Facebook, lots of Facebook exposure where they see you on Facebook a lot. Humor is a great way to work in something that may not be a market stat or numbers, but yet if you can make someone laugh, it's very disarming, very important to increasing that level of engagement. Email campaigns through conversion or your CRM. Through conversion, your free website, you have templates and campaigns that you can create through there. So if they're getting something from you once a week, if it's just your blog post or if it's something, then that is going to also enhance your top of mind awareness. And people need to see it from multiple venues, not just direct mail, not just Facebook, not just Instagram, not just an email, not just a phone call, but it needs to be through not just your open house signs, not just yard signs in the area. It needs to be through all these different sources, or at least 5 is what most trainers say. And then once you're doing that, and once you have top of mind awareness, then that's when you're calling and you're asking for that referral, or you're sending, you've sent them a great painter and you're calling back to say, hey, how was Jose's work? How was this? Did everything meet your expectations? By the way, who do you know that's maybe thinking about moving? That comes very indirectly, but you've earned that referral. So that's something that's different than a lot of other trainers and real estate brokerages teach that I think is extremely important, and that's a process. So following that process, and I'll send this out to you guys now, but is important to do. So that pretty much, we're at about 30 minutes, so that wraps up our Sphere of Influence training. And email me if you have any questions, or Richard if you have any questions, and we'll probably have another training that will be a little bit better than this one next time. Do you guys have any questions, Connie or Justin? No. All right. Thank you for your time and have a productive week.